Hello. So in this video, we're going to solve a system of linear equations by first writing the system. So we need to come up with the equations for the system. And then second, we'll solve the system by using an augmented matrix and using our calculator to solve the matrix. So let's begin. We're told that a doctor's prescription calls for 40 milligrams of vitamin C and 30 milligrams of vitamin D. So I'm going to write that down. So our prescription calls for vitamin C, we need 40 milligrams, and vitamin D, we need 30 milligrams. Okay, we go to the pharmacy and we realize the pharmacy stocks two types of compounds or two types of liquids that we can use to fill this prescription. One of the liquid contains 20% vitamin C and 30% vitamin D. Okay? The other contains 40%, so the other liquid contains 40% vitamin C and 20% vitamin D. Oops. Okay, the question that we want to ask ourselves is how many milligrams of each of these liquids or each of these compounds should we mix together so that at the end our mixture will contain 40 milligrams of vitamin C and 30 milligrams of vitamin D. Okay, so since this is the question that we're trying to answer, how many milligrams of each liquid or each compound, then we need to define those compounds and give it a name. So let's write that down. So I want to know how many of each. So let's write down that the number of milligrams of, let's just call that liquid 1, which is the first compound. Okay, we don't know how many milligrams of this liquid we need yet. That's what we're trying to figure out. So for right now, let's just call it X. Okay, and then the same thing for the second liquid. We don't know how many milligrams of it we will need. That's what we're trying to figure out. So let's call it Y. Okay. So ultimately we want to solve for X and we want to solve for Y, meaning we want to solve for the number of milligrams of liquid 1 and the number of milligrams of liquid 2. And what we're going to end up doing is we're going to add them together. So once we figure out how much of each, we add them together to fill our prescription. Okay, so now we need to come up with our system. And to come up with the system, we're going to use all the information that was given to us here. So I know that, let's see here, we know that we need a combination of vitamin C and vitamin D. Okay, and we've got liquid 1, which we called X, and we have liquid 2, which we called Y. Okay, and let's start filling things in. So liquid 1 contains 20% vitamin C. So I'm going to use 20% vitamin C. Okay, so if I take 20%, which is what's in liquid 1, all right, times the number of milligrams, and I don't know how many milligrams of liquid 1 I'm going to need, but that's going to fulfill the vitamin C requirement out of liquid 1. But we also know that liquid 1 also contains some vitamin D in it. In fact, it contains 30% vitamin D. Okay, so again, I don't know how many milligrams of liquid 1, but however many milligrams of it is going to contain 30% of vitamin D. Okay, for liquid 2, it's got 40% of vitamin C, so I don't know how many milligrams of it I'm going to eventually need. So right now we don't know, but of course we're going to find out. But we know that it contains 40% vitamin C and 20% vitamin D. Okay, now we also know that when we combine these two liquids, so when I combine whatever number of milligrams of liquid 1 with however many milligrams of liquid 2, total, we need to make sure that we combine just enough so that we get 40 milligrams of vitamin C. Okay, so I need it to be 40, so we'll call this total. Okay, let me make some columns here. and some rows. Okay. All right, and the same thing down here. I don't know how much of liquid 1, how much of liquid 2, but when I combine these two compounds together, I know that for vitamin D, I'm going to need a total of 30 milligrams. All right, so what we have here, if you take a look at our two rows, is we have our two equations for our system. And we need two equations because we have two unknowns. So now that we have our system, let's choose a method for solving it. So I'm going to solve this by using a matrix. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to write down our augmented matrix. And our augmented matrix takes the coefficient in front of all these variables and the constants. So I'm going to call my first row here x, and my second row y, and then my third, I'm calling it rows. My first column x, second column y, third column is going to be my constants. Okay, all right, so I'm just writing down the coefficients. So I've got 0.2, 0.4, and 40. And on the second row, I've got 0.3, 0.2, and 30. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to use our graphing calculator and we're going to row reduce this matrix into echelon form. So that's what RREF stands for. And then that's going to give us a solution where the first column is still x, second column is y, and then the last column will be the solution. Okay, so we're looking for something that looks like this, and then we need to fill in the blank here. Okay, all right, so let's go to our graphing calculator, and let's put in our augmented matrix. So to do this, we're going to go into the matrix function, so just go second, and press this button, and now we're going to edit our matrix. So this is a 2 by 3 matrix. So 2 rows, 3 columns, and I have stuff in here from the last problem that I worked on, but that's okay, you can just type over these numbers. So let's go ahead and type in the coefficients and then press enter after you've typed them in. And then also type in the constant. Okay, so now that I have my augmented matrix typed in, I'm going to get out of this window by quitting. So I'm going to go second mode to quit out of that window. And now let's go back into the matrix, but this time we're going to go to the second tab. So I'm using the arrow key, and you're going to scroll down to letter B, which is RREF. You want to make sure you choose RREF, not REF. So RREF, press enter. Now the cursor is blinking and it's saying which matrix do you want to row reduce. So go back into the matrix. This time choose the first tab, and we save that matrix under the 2 by 3, so it's already highlighted. Press enter. And so now we're telling our calculator to row reduce this matrix. Press enter, and there's the solution. So 1, 0, 50, 0, 1, 75. Okay, so 50, 75. So let's talk about how to read the solution. So this coefficient 1 goes with this x, so that means that x is equal to 50. This coefficient here goes with the y, so that means that y is 75. And then let's go back up here. X is the number of liquid 1, so we need 50 milligrams of liquid 1. And y is the number of milligrams of liquid 2, so we would need 75 milligrams of liquid 2. And that will be the combination that we would need to make sure that this prescription has 40 milligrams of vitamin C and 30 milligrams of vitamin D. That's a fun problem.